Hi, I'm Nikki, the Obsessive Bookseller. Welcome to my channel. We're doing a book haul today. I got lots and lots of books to show you. I've been having so much fun book buying lately to the point where I crave the hunt. It is so much fun finding and curating some of these titles. I think I might have a slight book buying addiction, which is something I will probably need to address at some point. But for now, I have a ton of really beautiful books to show you. I have been curating my collection. I have limited the amount of kind of impulse buys. These are all very carefully chosen titles that I wanted to add to my collection. Both series that I've read and loved, and ones that I'm really sure that I'm going to like. And then mixed in a few Christmas presents, a few birthday presents, and per usual, I will be showing them to you alphabetical by author's last name, just because you kind of got to have some sort of system. First up, the Subterranean Press came out with Great Change and Other Lies by Joe Abercrombie. It's this really short compilation of short stories, at least one of which takes place after the Age of Madness trilogy. And I know he's taking a break from that series to write The Devil, so any little bit of extra I can get in this world, I'm totally there for. This is a signed and numbered edition. It better be, considering how much it cost me. And I need to prioritize picking this up sooner than later. I have a bad habit of letting these short little books go unread because I can pick them up anytime. I could read them in an afternoon, so that means I don't need to write them down on my reading calendar. Not that I have a reading calendar, but you know what I mean. I have hardcover versions of A Shadow in Summer and A Betrayal in Winter by Daniel Abraham. This is part of the Long Price Quartet series, one of my all-time favorites. And I came across on Pango, a hardcover, full-size standard edition of this. When it came out into the bookstore I worked at, when I first, picked it up and started kind of just, leafing through the pages and ended up standing there for a half an hour reading it, they only had paperbacks. They did not release the hardcover editions at my store. So I didn't even know these existed. Now, getting a hold of non-book club editions has been a huge pain in the butt. I should have another book here, but I've ordered 2 or 3 of them that I've ended up having to return because they're the wrong size. Even though I emailed beforehand, I am actually trying not to waste everybody's time. But I am so excited! This is actually a second copy of this book that I've purchased. The first one, the condition wasn't great, so I replaced it with this, so I'll be selling that other one on Pango, but woohoo! But see, it opens up a can of worms because now I still have 2 more to collect. Everything I buy just means I buy more. I have the Broken Binding special edition of Bookshops and Bone Dust. It came with a little card, which is kind of fun. I like the sprayed edges on this one. I actually paid way too much for the first book, the edition of this, because I prefer this cover to, this kind of artwork cover to the other versions that they have out there. So I paid way too much for the first one, and then they did a reprinting of the first one. Whatever. This one I did not enjoy as much as the first book. It kind of forgot what made it special. It tried to have too many serious conflicts in it, whereas I would have just taken more time organizing books in the bookstore and handling customers and that kind of mundane thing. So not a total miss. I enjoyed it. Anything by this author I decided I will pick up and read, but I did not like it as much as the first one. Still worth having though. I recently read Inheritance Games, and I have no idea if this is book 4, this is the Brothers Hawthorne, or if it's a companion novel. I just tend to assume that everything is a trilogy, but I am planning to continue that series, and eventually I knew I was going to need to get to this one, and it was on sale at Barnes & Noble the day after Christmas. Might as well. That one, honestly, is probably more of an impulse buy than anything else on the shelves, but I am reading the series. I do have the first 3, so I knew I needed to continue at some point. Okay, these are fun. I found books 1, 3, 4, and 5 on Pango of The Demon Cycle by Peter Brett. Now, I've read the first 2 books and a couple of short stories in this world, and it's a mixed bag for me. There's really poor handling of some essay scenes that I just totally disgusted with. Some of the worst I've ever read. Especially in the second book, it kind of pissed me off. But the lore is so good. The demons are wildly fascinating. And I put this series down initially because at the time I was listening to them on audio, and at the time my library didn't have audio copies of books 3 through 5. So I thought, well, I'll pick it up eventually again. But now I'm at the point where I'm going to have to start over because I don't remember any of the characters. I have heard that the end half of the series isn't as strong as the beginning, but I would like to know what happens. And so I found these relatively inexpensive, and I am planning on restarting the series at some point. It's been long enough that I'm no longer really pissed at it, but it could just like make me angry again when I read it. I'll probably skip a couple of scenes, to be totally honest with you. I am excited to have these on my shelves, actually. Oh yeah, and evidently there's like a continuation, The Desert Prince. I found this on Pango for like 10 bucks, so added that one to the mix as well. Foreigner by C.J. Cherryh. This is a full standard size hardcover. Normally they come in book club editions of the very first book in the Foreigner series, and this was like a random amazing find. It's not in amazing condition, but it's like 30 years old. And I am planning on restarting this series. So I was kind of bored with this first book, and I was kind of angry at how it was kind of focused on the mundane, whereas I kind of wanted it to go somewhere. Like, this guy spent an inordinate amount of time concerned about where his mail parcels were. Like, that's all I remember about the book, other than the fact that it started over like 3 times at the beginning. Now, I don't know, my moods have kind of changed. Coziness is a thing where not a lot happens, but if you're interested in the subject matter, it could be fun. So I've been eyeballing this one as a series to get back into, especially since I kind of judged it a little harshly. I put it down with like 50 pages to go and then never went back to it. But I would like to continue the series, and I'm going to give it another shot. And the fact that I figured it would cost me like hundreds of dollars to collect the first few books in the series. And so the fact that I found one of these for like 10 bucks, like, this is the reason why I've been addicted to book buying lately, because you get some really cool stuff. I haven't started Combat Codes yet, but this is the second book. This is Griever's Blood, Alexander Darwin. This is a broken binding edition, which I love the sprayed edges. And just really classy naked hardcover. I love broken binding. I need to start a campaign, like, you know how people do those Instagram posts? This is a signed edition, where it's like X amount of days posting until I get on the Broken Binding subscribers list. Like, that would be great, because I spend way too much on the secondhand market trying to get a hold of these beautiful editions. And I swear, it was like a year ago, I swore up and down I would never collect these special editions because I knew it was going to be a can of worms. And then they came out with a special edition for a series that I absolutely loved. I think it was the Tchaikovsky Shadow of the App series. Yeah, these guys, which are not available in hardcover typically, so you have to get the special editions if you want a hardcover. That's where it all started for me, and I'm going to be paying off debt to Broken Binding for another 5 years at this rate. Also a Broken Binding edition, Sebastian de Castell's Crucible of Chaos. This takes place in the Greatcoats world. Nice sprayed edges, signed interior. Ba-now. Nice shiny naked hardcover. Now, the thing about this, I only have little paperbacks for the Greatcoat series, but it's one of my favorites, but I really hate the brown hardcovers that I've been able to find, and I don't really feel like collecting those. I'm really hoping, since the Broken Binding works with Sebastian de Castell, and they already have these beautiful editions of the newer books, that they will go back and redo the initial set of 4. That's what I'm holding out for. We'll see if it happens. Oh yeah, remember when I said I was getting really good at curating my collection and I don't have a lot of impulse buys? This is one of those exceptions. For some reason, I thought it'd be fun to buy Truth Witch by Susan Dennard and Wind Witch. I haven't read these, I have no idea what they're about, but I'm assuming that based on how fed up I've been with YA lately, that I'm not going to like them. But one of my patrons had them listed for like $5 a piece, and so I was like, oh, that'd be cool. It'd be nice to have them for my collection and, you know, sit and admire them in my YA section without actually reading them. It's kind of what I'm doing with everything else. Like, look at all those books. That's like 4 entire stacks, floor to ceiling, of YA books that I'm not reading right now. Now I have 2 more. The Sword Defiant by Gareth Hanrahan. Having just read and loved Gutter Prayer by this author, I snagged this special edition because I thought I'm probably going to enjoy this book. I have no idea what it's about, but I've got a signed numbered edition of this as well. And I'll probably finish out that other series before I start this one. I don't even know if there's a second book in the works. I haven't done that much research on it, but I liked it. Never Die by Rob Hayes. I really like the concept for this book, and I love this cover art. The Broken Binding actually has another edition like a really beautiful special edition for this one that I think would be gorgeous, but I decided I like this art better. So I don't always have to have the big hardcover. You can laugh at me in several months if I end up buying it, but I at least want to try this one in paperback first to see if I like it. And if I end up loving it, maybe I'll end up with 2 copies. I've heard nothing but good things about this book, and I think it's right up my alley. Beach Read by Emily Henry. These covers really don't do the series justice. This is probably my favorite romance writer at the moment. I don't read a ton of romance, but I tend to go for the more contemporary stuff. I don't like the bodice ripping historical whatevers. I don't enjoy those because it's like rinse and repeat. But these ones, they are kind of rinse and repeat within themselves. But I've never read anything like an Emily Henry, so it's like, oh great, I loved one book, I'll probably like the next one because it's a similar type of story. I love that she ties in connections, not just with the romantic interest, but with all of the people involved in the story, and they're just really good. I enjoyed this one almost as much as Book Lovers, so needed this one. I might film a video soon about how many different series that I'm in the middle of. It's like over 70. Shh. But this is one of them. This is The Mirror Empire, The World Breakers Saga by Cameron Hurley. So I found all 3 books in this series at a pretty decent price. I was already planning on collecting them because I read the first book and enjoyed it thoroughly. This author goes for shock value, so there are some things in here that are definitely shaking the status quo. She's not afraid to tackle taboo subjects and to really throw them in your face. But the concept, the world building, her background notes, her whatever is going on the periphery is more world building than I have read an entire fantasy series about. She just has so many amazing little details in there that she doesn't even cover them all because they're afterthoughts. So I really am wildly impressed with the world building. I have no idea where the story's going next after this book, but it's one of those that was complex enough that I really need to reread it before I continue on. And oddly, I had already bought this book, but it didn't match the size format, so I ended up having to rebuy it because I'm OCD and I need them all to match. But I am excited to have this one on my shelf because I think having it physically here and having all 3 of them means I will get around to them a little more quickly. Generation Ship by Michael Mamet. This is the longest I've gone without having read a new release by Mamet, and that needs to change soon because I love this author. My favorite sci-fi author. If you haven't read Planetside yet, go for it. This is a standalone, I believe, and yeah, I've never read a Generation Ship book, so I don't have anything really to compare it to, but I love the tone that this author writes in. It's always that dry humor, that sardonic tone. The reason I love his writing is some of the same reasons why I love Lies of Locke Lamora and Joe Abercrombie. It just tickles me. I love it. Yeah, these are the books that broke the bank. So I have broken binding editions of the Powder Mage trilogy, and I went back and forth. I don't have a subscription. I wasn't smart enough to sign up because I really didn't take the time to figure out what the subscriptions would entail. Oh, broken binding, I kept hearing about them, but I didn't explore it until it's far too late. The list is way too long, so I had to get these on a secondary market. But this series, especially the second trilogy, is in my top 3, maybe 4. I love Stormlight, I love Joe Abercrombie, I love Robin Hobb, and I love Brian McClellan, specifically for Powder Mage. The dry humor in this one kills me. I love it so much, and especially in that second trilogy, he's just so good at creating relationships between characters, and I felt connected to them. I really like the momentum of the whole thing, and the thing that edges it out is that dry humor. I feel like the sardonic way he delivers some of the lines is what took this from an enjoyable read to a little bit over the top for me in a good way. I love this one. They have artwork on the naked hardcovers, and honestly, I don't know what else they would have done, but I would prefer them a little more fantasy looking than military, but whatever. But they've got the sprayed edges that kind of all match, and these are not the signed editions. But I don't care. I just knew I needed. Now I have beautiful representation of one of my top 10 series. I feel like any books that are top tier for me, especially given how many that I've read, I can justify spending a little more on them. But I tell you what, if I had a broken binding subscription, it would not cost me nearly this much. Okay, this is fun. Christmas from the Husband. I have been wanting to buy myself copies of the Wayward Children series. It starts with Every Heart a Doorway. And I've been wanting copies of these for ages because I am highly enjoying this book. Some of these like little novellas are among my all-time favorites that I've read over the last few years. Like In an Absent Dream deals with the goblin market. It's so freaking good. Lost in the Moment and Found. Like, really love these books. They were like 10 bucks a piece. And I'm like, well, do I collect that or do I buy a book that I haven't read yet? And so I usually lean towards books I haven't read. But now I have all of these for my collection and I am stoked because now when I talk about them, I actually have something to hold up. We still got a ways to go. Okay, this next set is another example of why it's so addicting to find, like, look through books on Pango, because every now and then you find these gems and they're not too expensive, but then you're like, well, each book is not too expensive, but when you buy 12 of them, then it becomes a problem. So what I found are these beautiful copies of the Korean Chronicles by Ellie Modisette. It's book 2 through 8, I believe. I need to get a hold of book 1. But I had always been kind of interested in this series. My mom read them ages ago and liked them, at least the first 3 or so. And the seller on this, they had these beautiful new copies, and she was only selling them for like $5 a piece. I'm like, holy cow! And they were in such good condition. It made me think of like maybe this lady was getting a divorce or something and decided to sell off all of her husband's books. Like, who would let these go? It has to be someone selling someone else's stuff is how it felt to me, because they were really cool. This means that I will probably need to prioritize this series a little more than I have been. I recently read the first Imager book. I don't even know what book in the series this is, but I decided I might want to start collecting them and reading more because I really enjoyed that one. I did not enjoy the Soprano Sorceress. It was a little boring. I don't even remember if I finished it. Like, it was that unmemorable. It's like a 5-book series. But he's known for his Magic of Recluse series, and I have no idea if that one's any good, but I've been told it's a little boring. But I liked Imager, and it is a bit dry, but cozy fantasy is in now, so if you like cozy fantasy and like school setting type of thing, magic using, it was a decent read. But hopefully I like these, because I have lots and lots of them. My patrons and I are reading Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, and it occurred to me that I did not have a copy of the first book. So I found a relatively cheap one on Pango and got it home, and for whatever reason, I always check to see if they're signed, because I have found enough times, like, accidental signatures in here. So we checked it. This is actually Naomi Novik's signature. I don't know if the seller knew that they had a signed copy because it wasn't advertised, but yay! I liked Uprooted. Get off my case. For Christmas last year, 2022, my husband bought me Murtagh by Christopher Paolini. I can spell it, but I can't say it. I have not yet read Brissinger and Inheritance. Hopefully my patron Jen and I will be solving that at some point this year. But yeah, I'm not ready for this one, but I have all of the other ones in hardcover. I may as well collect the next one, even if they just sit there and collect dust. I recently read KJ Parker's 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City for Patreon Book Club. And for my birthday, my patron Dave sent me How to Rule an Empire and Get Away with It and a Practical Guide to Conquering the World. And I was totally delighted with that first book. It was so much more fun than I thought it was going to be. And my stingy self, who keeps holding on to these 5 stars for like the most amazing books ever, I think I'm going to give that one a 5-star. Like, pure enjoyment. It was awesome. And it was kind of like a Pratchett book meets an Abercrombie book, which, if you can imagine, like, it's just a little bit of dark, but a little over the top, but really funny, like dry humor, situational, odd main character. Absolutely loved it. Can't wait to read on. So thank you, Dave. So exciting. Barnes & Noble had these exclusive editions of Defiant by Brandon Sanderson, and I like green and blues better than oranges, so I went in and got one. I thought it was pretty cool. Honestly, here's what the other books look like. It probably goes along with the color scheme, even though it's a little bit closer to Starsight. So I don't know, maybe the orange one would have been like more fitting for the series as a whole. Whatever. I didn't love the second book, so I didn't feel in any hurry to read the third one, and now that the fourth one's out, I'm probably going to start the whole series over again and just read it from start to finish, but I at least needed to collect it. I love Sanderson so much that I can't just, like, let a book go by the wayside. And to that end, yes, this is how long it has been since I've done a book haul, because I have a copy of The Sunlit Man, which mailed out like last October or November. Yeah, I have not read these ones yet, but I am looking forward to them. More Tchaikovsky. I'm so excited. I bought myself The Tiger and the Wolf. This is the Echoes of the Fall series. I only have the first two here, but this is one that I feel like I want to drop all my reading plans for and just pick up immediately, but I'm going to show some restraint. But at least now I have them. Okay, now I did a thing. And like, I could justify doing a thing when I bought the Powder Mage trilogy special editions because I've at least read it. But there was this beautiful, kind of affordable copy of Cage of Souls by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And like signed edition to boot, which honestly getting a hold of signed editions of his aren't that difficult. But I haven't read this book yet. And I was willing to drop quite a bit of money. Now, granted, this was like several $100s cheaper than the next like lowest priced item. So I'm like, if I read this and love it and it's gone, I'm gonna kick myself for not having picked this one up in hardcover, especially since that's what happened with Guns of Dawn. There was one hardcover left in existence, and by the time I read it, it had sold. So this was a fear buy, but I love this cover. So beautiful. I'm told the contents are a bit grittier than the cover would have me believe, and it's also more of a sci-fi than a fantasy, but this author has worked for me on so many other books that I think it was a risk I was willing to take. And then the Broken Binding, Blood of the Mantis, special edition, also signed, possibly numbered. Nope, not numbered, just signed. I'm loving this series. If it weren't for how many different things I'm trying to juggle, I probably would have finished it already. But I am so thrilled that the Broken Binding is producing all of those in hardcover, so have them for my set. The pre-order for the fourth one just came out, so that's exciting. Birthday present from the husband. This was so, like, I was so happy to get these. So the Shards of Earth, this is the Final Architecture series. They have these beautiful hardcovers by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I'm up to date with the Children of Time. And so now this one's next in the lineup. And they are so beautiful. I'm so excited to have these on my shelves. Do you ever buy new books and like love the way they look so much that you want to drop everything and just read them immediately? Hopefully I can get myself to a point where I'm okay doing that, but that's what I want to do. I just want to read these because they're so pretty. And I know I love the author, so there we go. Oh yeah. I also made another big purchase that I'm really excited about, but I did it several months ago, so the pain is not quite as poignant for how much I spent on these, but I picked up the Legacy trilogy by Matthew Ward. I believe these are numbered and signed editions as well. Nope. Signed editions. These like beautiful mylar wrapped hardcovers. Paid an incredibly pretty penny for this. And at least this one I picked up, I had read the first book. Sorry, I keep dragging my camera around and then forgetting to drag my mic with it. Can you hear me now? I had read most of the first book for a review obligation, but never got back to it, but liked it enough that I'm just really excited to have these on my shelves. It's like classic fantasy, multiple POVs. I really like the writing tone. It had a lovely flow to the writing. And yeah, I'm gonna have to start the series over again though, because I read it for a review obligation and it was for audio production, so I didn't just read half the book. But I was paying attention to all the opposite things of what you want to pay attention to when you're reading a high fantasy stuff. So very excited to have these. Once I get through my first pass for Read, Burn, Hoard, where I go through and choose one shelf to focus on per month and kind of curate that shelf, I think this second pass through is going to be so much more fun because I've curated all these new titles and I've gotten rid of a whole bunch of duds. So I'm hoping that each shelf that I get to is going to be just paining me to pick between which book to read that month. Whereas right now, I have a lot of shelves where if I can find any book that I'm excited to read, I'm doing good. Another fun Pango find, Finding Knife and The Blood Mirror by Brent Weeks. This is books 2 and 4 of the Lightbringer series. And like, I know a lot of booktubers don't really like this series, and I can understand why. Like, all of their reasons make sense, but I would like to give it a try anyways. And I found these for like $10 a piece, so I thought I would at least complete the collection and give it a go at some point. I did read the first 100 pages or so of the first book at one point, and I remember why I put it down. I don't think I would be putting it down for that same reason if I picked it up again, but I really liked the magic of it, and I liked the overall, I don't know, concept. It seems like it had a fun concept right from the start. So the same seller that I bought all of those Modasit books also had beautiful editions of The Deathgate Cycle by Margaret Wise and Tracy Hickman. And here's the thing, I had bought the 4th book in this series on my used bookstore trek, and I was like, why did I buy this? I am never going to be able to find pristine copies of these books, and if I do, they're going to cost me an arm and leg. So I don't even want to look for them because that would be just way too much money, and I would just get crappy copies. But no, for like $5 to $8 a piece, I was able to fill in the gaps of every book in this series, but the only one she didn't have was number 1. And my patron Mike happened to have number 1, and it's a beautiful edition, so I picked that one up also. And like, oh my gosh, this series is so cool. It doesn't get talked about a lot on BookTube. I've heard the Bookish Chaz mention it a couple times, but so these are the authors that wrote the Dragonlance Chronicles, and those are really good. They also have a whole bunch of other different series that kind of, like, there's one character that kind of ties everything together. But for the most part, these are so much fun. So the first 4 books in the series kind of deal with their own worlds, and the last 3 are a convergence of all of those worlds. And I love the momentum it builds within it, and it was just so wildly entertaining. Such a unique thing, and it was one of those like classic fantasies with such creativity and like an edge of ideas that kind of a little bit sci-fi-ish that you really feel like you're getting something of substance. Now, granted, it's been a really long time since I've read these, but like, I never thought in my wildest dreams I would have all of these beautiful copies. I mean, they're like 35 years old, so condition-wise, I'm happy. And then additionally, the Sovereign Stone trilogy. I have not read this one yet, nor The Rose of the Prophet, but I've done all the others by those 2. And I had a book club edition of this book, but then the first 2 were regular sized, and then this one was the book club edition size, so I was able to replace that with a beautiful, almost new looking copy of book 3. Going through all these books today with you has not helped me feel like I should stop book buying. Like, look how much cool stuff I've found. I need to put myself on a ban. And then last but not least, 1,000 Deaths of Arbor Ben by Tyler Whitesides. This author wrote a couple of middle grade books, Janitors? That might be the one, but I don't think I've read those, but I like the idea of them, and I don't know. Seems like fun. Really freaking thick book. A Pango shipper offered to send this one to me for free because of a delay in shipping issue. That's everything. So many amazing books. Let me know if there's anything on here that you think I should expedite when reading, and just let me know what kind of cool books you've gotten lately. We're gonna do one last pass to show you everything I've picked up. So much good stuff. I can't wait to get these shelved. My new Sanderson, Adrian Tchaikovsky, love his work so much. My Deathgate Cycles, I'm so excited. Then my Legacy trilogy. Yep, can't wait. The problem is, I need to go faster at Read, Burn, Hoard because I have a couple of holes, but not many. Those holes are for the Legacy of Ash and the Weeks books. But yeah. And these ones down here are already waiting to be shelved. Thanks for watching with me today. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you on the next book haul. Bye.